Hey everyone, so just to give us a head start on the prep for next week, I'm going to sort of walk you guys through how we're going to do the setup and install for our environment for dealing with Python next week. And to make things simple, this video might be a little disjointed because I'm trying to do this for real. So I haven't totally worked it all out yet. But anyhow, the first thing that I want to do actually, so there were some questions about which version of Python we're going to use. We're going to stick with using Python 2. Python 3 is technically the latest version, but there are some significant differences between the two, such that Python 2 is still in heavy use. And you can see I have I've gone to the Aptana website to download Aptana. But before I do that, I'm going to check out, I want to check out what version of Python I have. And I'm actually going to install a new version of Python before I install Aptana. And I may still have to reconfigure afterwards, but I think this is going to be a more direct way to do it. So I'm going to go to the Python website here. I'll post this link, but you can also just sort of Google it. And you get python.org/getIt. And we are going to be using, as I mentioned, Python 2.7.6, which is the latest version of Python 2. And in order to do the install here, I'm just going to choose this. I'm going to do a typical save file. I'll throw this on my desktop and save it. Once this is downloaded, I will go through the installation process, which should hopefully be pretty straightforward. Python is pretty heavily used, so we don't expect too many issues with that. So I'm going to take a pause while the download happens, and then I will get back to you guys in a second. Oh, there we go, never mind. Okay, so double click on that. We know how to do this with our little files. And there we go, double click. It says lots of fun stuff to us. Yes, continue, I agree. Continue, install. I'm going to pause here. Okay, so my installation is wrapping up here. I had to put in an administrator name and password in order to get that to run. And we'll just wait another minute for this. Okay, so we have success. We see success at the end of this. We can hit close. We can close out of this. Now, how are we going to make sure that that worked properly? The easiest way to do that is to open a terminal window, which you can do by going to your Finder and typing terminal, and you'll get a little sort of black box. Ironically, the icon shows a black box. The background is actually white. And I'm just going to type Python in here. Now, when I do that, basically that's a way of saying to the computer, what version of Python do I have? And I can see that I now have 2.7.6. Depending on what operating system you have, you might initially see something like 2.6.1 if you do this test ahead of time. But this is good for us. We've got the right version of Python. So now we're going to go forward and download and install Aptana Studio. So we're going to choose the standalone version, just pretty much basic thing. Once again, we go through our standard file save process. Throw this on the desktop as well, because we'll get rid of it, and come back once that's done. Okay, so I'm now double clicking the DMG on my desktop and getting that to open. Apparently I need to do this. Authenticate. So I actually already had a version of Aptana Studio 3 on here, so I'm going to replace it, I guess. We'll see. Okay, so now that my setup, I've got it in my applications folder, so I'm going to pop open applications here. Oops, I've got Aptana Studio 2. There's Aptana Studio 3. Hopefully that will open something. Maybe. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this to my taskbar and get it opened, hopefully. Okay, so this is always going to give me this. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes, I want to do this. Click open. So when the first time you open Aptana Studio 3, it's going to ask you about something called a workspace. A workspace in Aptana is just a folder. Don't fret about it. The best thing, this is kind of a long and arduous name, so I would just say browse. You can put your folder wherever you like. I'm gonna, I'll create a new folder in here called week 5. Set it up in there. Click OK. And now it's doing all sorts of stuff in the background. So here we have the Aptana Studio environment. It has this start page, which we don't actually need, but it's just sort of saying hello. So I'm going to go up here to this this strange little icon. It's like, I guess it's really, this is a Windows icon, right? Or a window, not Windows the operating system, a window icon. So I'm going to click on this and I'm going to go to other, because by default it's going to expect me to be working on a web application, and we are working on a Python application. So PyDev, Python dev element. I'm going to choose that. And I'm going to close out of this guy. And now up under window, I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to show view, and I'm going to choose other. And under general, I'm going to choose Project Explorer. Now, all of this is just a way to make getting access to our files faster. So, this happens to be how Aptana is organized and is designed to work. There's nothing important about it outside of that. Just a piece of software, and software often has defaults. So I'm going to say Project Explorer. It has brought it down here, which is not what I want. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that Package Explorer window. I don't need that. So all I'm doing right now is I'm giving myself a shortcut to that week 5 folder that I created. You can also call it Python scripts or whatever you find convenient. But this is going to navigate to my this is going to give me a view on my entire file system, and my purpose in here is basically to just get to that folder. And I'm going to say promote to project. And I don't want this to be a web project. It's not a web project, so I'm just going to unclick that and choose finish. And what this is going to do is that after this, every time I open up Aptana, it's going to sort of default to this folder. So I only have to do this once. This is just a configuration thing. What you can see is now I have a direct view, a direct line to this week 5 folder. And there's nothing in it right now. So what we want to do right now is just test that our Python install is working properly, and specifically that it's running the version of Python that we just installed, that 2.7.6. So in here, I can choose file, and I'm going to choose new. So I'm going to say new file. It's going to be super basic. You can see that it's defaulted into my week 5 thing, and I'm going to just say python test.py. Oh, py. Now py is the file extension for Python files. And we have to specify this for Aptana Studio because it handles a lot of different kinds of files, and so it actually uses that file extension to determine how to test this script and what kind of script it is. So we talked about how typography becomes important, and so what it means is that when Aptana is looking at this file, it will look at it through the lens of the Python language, and therefore it will highlight appropriately things like keywords, reserved words, all of that stuff that we've been talking about this week. And we wait for our little beach ball to get settled. Okay, this is an important point because this is where we're going to sort of check and see how things are going with our Python install. So it's going to pop up this saying the Python interpreter is not currently configured. Great, we can choose autoconfig, but we want to keep an eye on yes, what it's defaulting to. So this what we can actually see is a lot of gobbledygook, but if you look here, we see that this is all pointing to stuff that's 2.6. Remember, we just installed Python 2.7.6. So this is not pointing to the correct information. I want to be able to customize this. So in just a second, we'll come back and I'll show you how to actually select the new set of files that we just downloaded so that everything works properly. Okay, so for now what we'll do is this is showing us what's already configured, but we're going to say, okay, not because that's what we're actually going to use, but because we need the opportunity to actually choose something different. So what this is currently pointing to is the version of Python that came installed on my Mac. I want to create a new one, and so I'm going to call it updated, let's say, let's call it Python 2.7 install. And now this is where, so interpreter executable, this is where it's saying, hey, where do I find the stuff that I use to do this? So I'm going to go to Browse. Now, fortunately, there is a web page that explains this and has a very handy sort of image. I will provide you with this link. It has a very handy image because you have to dig down through like 8 folder layers in order to find this thing, which is kind of ridiculous and annoying, but sometimes that's the way it goes. So I'm going to choose Browse, and if I go to Macintosh hard drive, I'm going to see something called Library. Click into that. To refer back to my web page image here, it says, oh yes, I'm looking at frameworks and then Python framework. So here we are in frameworks, and then, oops, I can never get this thing to expand correctly. So Python framework versions 2.7. And what does this say here? I guess I have to go into the bin folder because of course that makes so much sense. And I'm going to choose Python 2.7. So yeah, you can see from this little image here that it's like this one, not the config file. So I'm going to choose Open, hit OK. And this looks much more pleasing to us because this is all the stuff that I just created. And so now, having done that, I should be able to say, this looks good, and I will click OK. And it's doing this weird thing where it says Python path. So the path is basically the part where it says, this is where you find the code that you need to run this. So I will give this a minute to run in the background, and then we'll test it out and see how we did. Okay, so that whole thing took like 2 minutes, 2-3 minutes. You know, just give yourself a little bit of time. And then it actually automatically closed out and just returned me to this Aptana window. So let's give this a shot, see how we do. So we talked about built-in functions or built-in methods. One of those that's available for Python is called print. It's something that will, it's kind of the conversation window for the program. And you notice actually when I put in those double quotes, it actually automatically closed the quotes. We can see that print, which is reserved, is this sort of gold color. The hello there, which is a string, is green. And so I can save this with a save shortcut. And then I'm going to come up to this little green bug and choose the bug icon itself, not the little arrow. And I'm going to choose Python run and hit OK. And if things are going well, looks like things are okay. So the way I know is that the console, which is the name for that output or conversation window, appears down here, and this red text is just saying, hey, I'm getting going, right? Kind of like we get refine going, open refine, and then it's printing out hello there. So this should mean that things are okay. We'll do a few additional tests prior to the sort of videos for next week. But this is a really good place to start. Please, if you have issues with this, please try to test this out soon, like today or tomorrow. And if you have any issues, go ahead and post them on Piazza. And if somebody else has had the same issue of you, feel free to +1 it there, so we know how many folks are dealing with it. All right, that's it for now. I'll be back in a little bit with some more exercises in Python.